Welcome to What a Creep, the show with Margot Donahue and Sonia Mansfield talking about creeps from the past to the present.
This is your quick guide to the biggest creeps, jerks, assholes, and losers, the best of the worst.
From two nice ladies who want the world to be a little less creepy.
Welcome back to What a Creep. This is Margot Donahue. St. Patrick's Day, Margot Donahue. Get it? This is my people's day that we're recording this. And my cohort in creepitude, as always, is the amazing Sonia Mansfield. Hey, Sonia.
Hello, my friend. Happy St. Patrick's Day to you. Do-de-do-de-do.
Erin go brah. We are the show that talks about creeps from the past to the present. We're talking about a super duper creep today. Take care of yourselves. We'll talk about the trigger warnings in a bit. Just so you know, we end every episode with someone who's not a creep, so you are not left feeling completely burnt out from the awfulness of the world. I forgot to mention, did you hear that Lance, not Lance Henrik,
Lance Reddick
died?
I know, total bummer. I saw that headline too. If you don't know who that is, look him up, because then you'll be like, I know who that is. He's in everything you love, basically.
The Wire, Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
Yep.
He did voice work.
He's in the John Wick movies.
All the John Wick movies. Ugh. So this isn't going to cheer you up, but maybe at the end you'll like our non-creep, and that'll put a little pep in your step. You can follow us on Facebook. We do have a basic Facebook page, but that's usually a place where people go to complain about our language, or we've blocked them elsewhere, frankly.
We'll block you. We don't care. We don't care.
We don't care. We use salty language, so that is your first warning about the salty language alert.
Fuck yeah, we do.
We have a private Facebook group. We're much more interactive in our private Facebook group, and we do have to keep that private and have you answer 3 questions before you come on in. But like I said, that's where we're most interactive. We are on Twitter at CreepPod, because somebody had What a Creep on Twitter for over 12 years. Try doing that 3 times fast, Sonia.
Damn.
But they never used it.
Creep.
So once again, CreepPod on Twitter. Instagram, please follow us, What a Creep Podcast. And then we have stickers here. We just got new stickers in, Sonia. They're the die cut kind. I love these.
Cute. Oh, they're really cute, everyone. They're adorable. Everybody drink.
Everybody drink. So if you'd like some, please send us your email. Please send us your address at the following email, whatacreeppodcast@gmail.com. Also, that's a place to give you your suggestions if you want to keep things private for creeps or for non-creeps, or if you just want to reach out and say hi to us. We do love hearing from y'all, especially we love to hear about when and where you listen to the show.
We put this thing out into the world, and we love to know how you consume it, I guess. That's all.
It's so interesting to us because I'm in New York. She's in San Francisco. I woke up this morning, it's St. Patrick's Day, and I was thinking about my friend Binksy in Sydney, Australia. So I asked out loud, and it was already Saturday at 1 a.m. So they had already missed it. I had already been through it. So
did you ask them what the future was like? What's the future like? Are there flying cars?
Please send us please tell us it's worth going on. We need your encouragement there. Okay. Sonia, tell them about the website, please.
Yes, you can go to whatacreeppodcast.com, and it's everything you ever wanted to know about our podcast, but we're afraid to ask. There are links to all of our episodes in there, and in those little links are also our show notes, because we source everything that we do. So we're not making this stuff up. We're not just pulling it out of our ass. We want to give credit where credit is due. So please check that out if you're curious, and you can dig a little deeper by reading what we read, because we can't include everything, obviously. There's also a link to our merch shop where you can get t-shirts and tote bags and journals and all kinds of awesome shit with our stuff on it. Can testify the shirts are very comfy. And there's more. There's a link to our Patreon page. You want to tell them about that, Margot?
Yes, Patreon. We put our first few seasons up there. I think it's time to put another season of shows up there.
Ooh.
We also put out 2 bonus episodes every month. And then Sonia also puts out a newsletter every month. So that's the place to go if you want to support our show. And it just helps us, with the news sources and all the little electronic things we need to do in the software and all that shit to put all this shit together for you, which we love to do, by the way. But we do want to say that if money is tight, we totally understand. There's a new thing I forgot to tell you about this on Spotify. Do you listen to Spotify?
Mm-mm.
Okay, on Spotify now, I don't know how long they're going to keep this thing, but when you're listening to a podcast, they ask you, what do you think of this show? And you can write in right away. So if you're listening to us on Spotify or other shows on Spotify, please say yes.
Yes, please do that. Thank you.
Leave us, wherever you get your podcasts, please, be sure to leave us stars or review, whatever they have. And I'd like to thank the following people who left us 5-star reviews in iTunes. First, Christina Bigheart, who really such a sweetheart for doing that. Also,
Max says hi.
He does say hi. Shops a Lot 99 up in Canada. She's was glad that we talked about Terry Fox, not a creep, by the way. And once again, Arena Autumn, who had a head injury and's been recovering from it, and we've been helping her on her journey back. So thank you so very much. I think I went through everything for the top of the show. Sonia, we've got a big size creep, don't we, today?
Yeah, he's foot-long creep. Everyone, we are going to be talking about Jared Fogle. Okay, so this guy's a real creep. There are a trigger warning here of child sexual abuse, so please take care of yourself. Maybe this episode isn't for you, and that's okay. Or you could skip right to the non-creep.
Right.
Which, that's a perfectly cromulent way to listen to the show, to steal a made-up word from The Simpsons. So, Margot, do you know who Jared Fogle is?
I do, unfortunately.
Yes. So Jared Fogle, in case you don't know, was the face of Subway sandwiches for years here in America, probably all over the world, actually. He was famous for losing a shit ton of weight, 245 pounds, just by eating 2 Subway sandwiches a day. But eventually he got more famous for being a pedophile. So it's time to talk about this fucking creep. And we're going to start how we always do, at the beginning. Jared Scott Fogle was born August 23rd, 1977 in Indianapolis. His parents are Norman and Adrian Fogle. His father was a doctor. His mother was a teacher. They had a very seemingly normal upper middle class life. His mother has said in an interview that Jared was a wonderful eater when he was a baby, and then, by the way, that's 100% a thing that people say. Oh, he's a wonderful eater. I used to say it about Calvin all the time. He's a wonderful eater. He eats everything. She said he would eat with great gusto, and but they didn't know this was going to become a problem. So he was a very shy, overweight kid. And he was picked on constantly. When he wasn't being picked on, he was basically ignored, which is also, terrible when you're young. No one wanted to hang out with him, and food became kind of his only friend. He lived to eat. He has said in interviews, I was living just for whatever the next meal was. He was living from meal to meal. Mm-hmm. And he remembers he just had these eating binges as early as 3rd or 4th grade. He wouldn't just eat a bowl of ice cream. He'd eat the whole container. He wouldn't just eat a slice of pizza. He ate the whole pizza. And it just got worse. He turned 16, he gets a driver's license, and now he could just go from fast food restaurant to fast food restaurant and eat whatever he wanted. And his parents can't monitor what he's eating. And in high school, he weighed 300 pounds. And by the way, no, we're not shaming anybody for being overweight here. You do you. You're fine. So he weighed 300 pounds, and his weight just went up in college, and he hit 425.
I didn't realize it was that big.
Yeah, he got real big.
Wow.
And, his health was not okay.
Is he tall?
He is pretty tall. He's 6 foot, 1 or 2.
Okay.
Yeah. So, it got to a point where like his health was not okay, and he lived really close to a Subway shop, which, again, if you don't know what Subway is, they make Subway sandwiches. That's their thing. And he saw that they were selling these sandwiches that were 6 grams of fat, 6 grams of fat a piece. And he used to eat at Subway all the time, but he would get like the steak and cheese sandwiches and like the really fatty ones, which, by the way, I'm sure they're delicious. And then he just had this idea like, hey, what if I eat like 2 of these sandwiches every day instead of what I normally eat? So he wouldn't eat breakfast, and then he would have one of these he would have like one of the like 6-inch turkey subs, a bag of the baked potato chips, and a Diet Coke. And then for dinner, he would have the foot-long veggie sub and a Diet Coke. And he would skip all the stuff, the shit that makes it delicious. Cheese, mayonnaise, oil, all that stuff.
Right.
Yeah. And then he would do a little bit of walking or whatever. And in the first 3 months, he lost 94 pounds.
Holy shit.
Yeah. And he was feeling like, hey, I'm making progress. And he started like walking to class instead of driving and stuff like that. And eventually he lost 245 pounds. That's a huge amount of weight.
Yeah.
Yeah. So in the spring of 99, he's walking across the college campus, and he ran into his former like dorm mate from when he was a freshman. And the roommate didn't even recognize him, obviously, because he had lost so much weight. And this former dorm mate actually happened to be a reporter for the student newspaper and wrote a story about him. And it was called From Thick to Thin. And it was all about like Jared's weight loss thing. And then it just snowballed from there. So the local media saw it, and they did a story. And then when the local media did a story, the wires picked it up, and it went national and got the attention of Subway. And Subway reached out to him to do a test commercial, and he did really well on it. And it just went from there. So like his first commercial debuted on New Year's Day in the year 2000. In the year 2000.
New Year's Day is when you get all those diet ads, by the way.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Right.
So like,
right.
And it was all about like Jared's, that's a very unusual diet. It's like, hey, I walked a lot and I ate these 2 sandwiches a day and I lost all this weight. And by the way, it totally came a thing. Like other people started doing it, and then they started adding those people to the commercials, and it became a thing. So his commercials were insanely popular. Sales for Subway went up 18% that year, and then another 16% the following year.
Those are big
It's
numbers.
not bad.
Yeah.
And he got famous. Jared was everywhere. Like at the time, American Idol was like the #1 show in the country. And he's like on there, like talking to the contestants, and he's going on a speaking tour of like colleges and high schools. He did like a whole keynote address at Harvard. He carried the torch for the Olympics. He went on Oprah. He went on Oprah. Come on. And it was a big deal. And during his time with Subway, he did 300 commercials for them. And he made, he had a net worth of over $15 million. And by the end of his run, he had tripled their sales.
He was a big thing, because you remember that NBC, you're going to talk about The Biggest Loser?
Yeah.
Yeah, he was on The Biggest Loser, which was a huge show for a while there.
Yes.
But the Subway did the partnership with them, and then he was on there a lot. Yeah.
Yeah. And he was just on everything. He traveled constantly for Subway. He was all over the country all the time. He was doing every radio show, every local news program, and then he was speaking at schools and stuff. And I don't know, Jared seemed pretty harmless, I think, to a lot of people. And, he seemed relatable, and what he did to lose the weight seemed obtainable. Right before we started recording, you and I were making fun of Gwyneth Paltrow and how she is like, I have coffee for breakfast and I drink bone broth and then I get an IV with vitamins. And she looks like a ghoul, but whatever. Gwyneth Paltrow's wellness is not obtainable to the average person.
Right.
We can't afford IV drops of nutrition.
Her vitamins cost a fucking fortune. Right.
Yeah. Jared's thing sounds very relatable. Everyone has a Subway in their town. Like, I get it. So he's traveling all over. He's super famous. He also, I want to point out, got married twice during this time period. So we're talking like a 15-year time period.
It's a long time.
Yeah. At first, he was married to a woman named Elizabeth Christie. They were married for 6 years. And then he got divorced. And then he met someone named Kate McLaughlin. And they were married in 2010. And she was with him up until what's going to happen later. And they have 2 children together. He also established something called the Jared Foundation. And this was in 2004. And it was a nonprofit organization that was about like raising the awareness about childhood obesity. And that's kind of why he was traveling to all these schools. It was about like education programs and tools to help parents and schools and communities like deal with childhood obesity. And he hired this man named Russell Taylor, who at the time was working for the American Heart Association. Okay. And he hires him to run the Jared Foundation.
Makes sense.
And they were really close, and they traveled together a lot. And it turned out they had a lot in common. And it turned out they were both pedophiles. So they had that in common. And so here we go, everyone. Let's be careful. So Taylor is actually married. His wife, Angela, and she had 2 stepdaughters. He had multiple hidden cameras all over the home, and he was filming the stepdaughters and their friends. Like they're changing clothes, they're showering, they're bathing. There was some sexually explicit things because this went on for years. They were from the age of like 9 to 16.
Oh, Jesus.
This was going on. And he would film all this stuff, which, by the way, the wife knew about. It boggles my fucking mind. Boggles my fucking mind. And then Taylor would give these tapes to Jared. And Jared would watch them. And not only was he watching these things, it turned out, was raping children all over the country. He was traveling, talking about childhood obesity and his success on the diet. And he's also like acting out
looking for kids.
He's looking for kids.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's what I'm trying to get at.
Not a drag queen, by the way. He's not a drag queen. Like anybody on the street. We should remember.
Yes.
We should also remember sort of the links for the episode. We could say that when you're done. The sources. Yeah.
Yes. Oh, yes. Yes. When I'm done. Thank you.
I just remember too.
I went right to trigger warnings and I forgot to mention the sources. I apologize. Okay. So in 2006, he meets Rochelle Herman, and she was like a local TV personality, radio show host in Sarasota, Florida. And she interviewed him and they got along fine. She did another interview with him. And it was when they were like filming at a local middle school. And he starts getting like kind of handsy with her and getting a little too close. And she's like, and trying to like back away. And then he leans over and he tells her how hot he thinks middle school girls are. Oh, and she's like, red flag, right? So after that, she begins recording all of her conversations with him. Pretty smart. But he was calling her up to 15 times a day sometimes. And she's recording all of it. And she was pretending that she was into him. And he just started confiding in her. And he would say it's just gross, children have nice, pure bodies. And he expressed interest in children as young as 9 or 10 years old. Ugh. And she did eventually go to the FBI with her tapes. But because she didn't get his consent for recording and she was doing it on her own, they weren't going to stand up in court. And the FBI then recruited her to work for them. She recorded their conversations for years. This went on.
Imagine how
horrifying
that would be.
in the Jared documentary that I'm going to mention at the end of the show when I mention my sources.
It's St. Patrick's Day, y'all. We're not drunk.
Yeah, we're not drunk. I'm not drunk. This stuff is very upsetting. She mentions it took a real toll on her and her children because she became very paranoid about the idea of predators, and that kind of fear trickled into her children and made them very nervous and anxious, and they were paranoid, and beyond just being like on guard, like they had a lot of anxiety problems. So it definitely took its toll on her and her children, which is really sad. So she recorded him. She would do these drop-offs to the FBI with the tapes and all that stuff. And he went from like kind of expressing his attraction to children to boasting about raping them. And he at one point even asked her to like groom her own children and her children's friends for him. He tells her about a trip he made to Thailand where he brags about how you can just get whatever you want over there, how easy it is, how you can just ask and you can get a boy or a girl as young as 9. It's really fucked up. And this shit went on for 3 years and the FBI didn't do anything about it because while they had the tapes, they didn't have any actual proof that he was acting on these things. He could just argue,
and he has a ton of money. Get any lawyer he wants, right?
Yes, and he could just argue like this was just like dirty talk or whatever. So they didn't have their case. But eventually, Jared got tired of talking to Rochelle because, for obvious reasons, she didn't want to meet him in person. Because she thinks he's gross and she doesn't really want to be with him, and she was scared of him. So he moves on. So he's traveling all around the country. He's promoting Subway, and while he's out promoting Subway, he's hiring adult sex workers wherever he went, which is fine. You do you. But then he would ask them to find younger children for him, and he would pay them a fee. So like, here's the other thing. He would text people. I was like, that people can read your texts eventually, right? So like he would text, like there was an 18-year-old girl that was one of his sex workers. And he texted her, "Did you find some young girls and boys for me?" And like would offer her $400 if she could find someone younger. There's all kinds of texts like this of him texting different sex workers, asking, "Do you have access to any younger girls?" One of his victims was a 17-year-old girl that he paid her to have sex with him. But again, she's 17.
She's a kid.
You cannot consent at 17. So I read a few things where they referred to her as a sex worker. And I was like, no, that's a child. There's multiple text threads like that, and I don't want to read them all because it's upsetting, but it's just the younger, the better. I'll make it worth your while. He asked for explicit photos of young girls, of children, by the way. He was also having sex with a Subway employee in Florida. She was of age. Yay.
Right.
Good job, Jared. And during a text exchange, he had tons of texts with her, and he would tell her like that he was paying like 16-year-old girls to have sex with him. He asked her to advertise herself on Craigslist and to have sex with strange men so that he could watch her, and that he would pay her $500 per act. Cool relationship. Yeah, gross. And then he asked her to set him up on a quote unquote date with her underage cousin. And then there's just a ton of texts where he's like, "Did you have time? Did you find time for me to talk to your cousin? Any more news about your cousin? Maybe all 3 of us could be together." Like, it's fucking gross. It's disgusting. So eventually the truth starts coming out because Taylor, back to Taylor from the Jared Foundation, offered to send another woman pictures of child sexual abuse. And she was like, no, and reported him to the police.
Good for her.
And Yes. And the police raided his home and they found more than 400 videos in his house of child sexual abuse. And they arrested him. And they arrested his wife. So he pled guilty to 12 counts of producing those videos and 1 count of distributing them. And he got 27 years in prison.
That's it?
That's it. And the wife got 33 years.
Why did she get more?
Maybe because they were her daughters? I don't know. I'm not sure. Honestly, I looked it up too, and I wasn't sure why she got more. Maybe she distributed more. Because it wasn't just to Jared.
Right.
It was to other people as well. So this is bananas. So they get arrested. They're not sentenced yet. I just jumped ahead there. But like Jared still didn't think he was going to get caught because Taylor gets arrested. The wife gets arrested. And he actually went out of state and tried again to like have sex with a minor, a child, by the way, a child. And a few months later, so they were arrested in April. So July 2015, the police raided Jared's home and they found all kinds of stuff, all kinds of child sexual abuse videos, photos, the text messages, the emails, everything. And eventually, like he admitted it. He pled guilty to possessing videos of child sexual abuse. It involved 12 different children, and he admitted to having sex with 2 children. But they believe that there's more. There's more out there, but this is what he was charged with. So, but he pled guilty. So in the trial, the defense hires this forensic psychiatrist named John Bradford. This guy sucks too. And he tries to downplay Jared's crime. Says, well, he was mostly attracted to females who were teenagers. Oh, and he called it, and I'm putting this in quotes, mild pedophilia. That's not a thing. So in the cross-examination, the prosecutor's like, mild pedophilia, is that a term used by other experts? And the guy admits it isn't. And he's like, did you invent this term? And he said, I did. Like, I was like, he's the fucking worst. I'm like, I hope you didn't get your, I'm all, how much did they pay that guy?
Oh my
Because he just goes on there, he says this shit, and they're like, does anyone use that? And he's like, no. And they're like, do you make it up to provide, and he's like, I did. I'm like, what an asshole. So before the sentencing, Jared, he's all crying to the judge, like, just like, oh, I've hurt my family and my wife so bad. And like, please don't send me to jail for a long time because then my wife is going to be a single mother. And
things you should have thought about before.
Yeah. The judge said, you gave your wife $7 million, so she'll be okay. The judge was like, fuck you. The judge was not having it. I'm not having it. Let's check to see if the judge is having it today. No, the judge is not having it today. No, she was like, fuck off. So, by the way, Jared's wife, Katie, claimed she had no idea of this. She probably didn't. After he pleaded guilty to the charges, she filed for divorce.
Good for her.
Good job. And she has sole custody of those children.
Good.
So also good. So Jared was sentenced to 15 years, which that judge, by the way,
15?
That was a harsher 15, which I still, not enough.
No.
Not enough. But apparently, like, the recommended sentence was like 12 years. And the judge upped it to 15. It should be more.
Yeah.
It should be way more. Like, never. He should never be out. Fuck this guy. He has a possible release date of March 2029. And they, again, 14 known victims.
Right.
But, and here's one more thing I want to add. So the Jared Foundation, how much do you think, how many grants it gave out?
I'm going to
I
say
guess.
the number of grants,
Yeah.
10.
0. It gave 0 grants. It never did anything. It collected millions of dollars and it never did anything. The only thing it spent money on was to pay Russell Taylor for running the foundation.
And the travel and all that shit.
Yes.
And they don't pay taxes for nonprofits.
Yes. Correct. And none of this is a reoccurring theme in many of our episodes recently. And a lot of those funds are unaccounted for in their tax records. So that is cool. I want to mention the sources for this episode are Business Insider, CBS, the Herald Times, the Indy Star, which did props. They are the local paper and they fucking nailed it. The ID Discovery documentary series, Jared from Subway Catching a Monster. It's disturbing, y'all.
Disturbing as fuck.
Yeah. Los Angeles Times, the Washington Post, and of course, our good friends at Wikipedia. And that is our creep, Jared from Subway.
What an asshole.
What an asshole. He's fucking gross. Gross.
Yeah, you have to be really careful with nonprofits and when you're giving your money for. And it's hard to explain because when you watch the documentary, how many schools he went to, and so many. He was always on the road. And
he seems so harmless.
Completely harmless. He's a guy like I wouldn't be afraid of if I walked down the street. And you know what I mean? Like
no, not at all.
When I'm ready to shiv anybody, like I'm a New Yorker.
He looks like he'd be working at the Geek Squad at Best Buy. Like,
right?
You never would think that
there's something disturbing going on.
Yeah, here. I think people have this idea in their head that like someone who commits child sex abuse is like this monster. It's like, and it's like, no, it's someone who looks like Jared.
Right. It's not a drag queen.
No, it's almost, I was going to say it's almost never a drag queen.
It's like, never a drag queen. And it's so fucking horrible. Like we're going after problems in the wrong way in this country. The fact that he only gets a dozen years for raping kids.
Yeah. It's so fucked up.
It's incredibly fucked up. And especially like the daughters of his,
yes.
I mean, come on, filming them all those years. Like that's all he got.
Yeah. It's all broken. The shit's fucking broken. And then you have people like Matt Gaetz that just fucking walk around, Donald Trump just walking around. They commit all kinds of fucking sex crimes. Nothing happens.
Well,
I'm happy to have this asshole off my plate.
All right, Sonia, are you ready to listen to our non-creep or hear about our non-creep this week?
Yes. Yes.
Okay,
please.
Hang on and we'll get to him. All right, Sonia, are you ready for our not creep this week?
Yes.
Our not creep this week is also from Indianapolis. Okay.
Yes.
Do you know who Kurt Vonnegut is?
No, never heard of him. Yes, I have.
Kurt Vonnegut was a writer born in November 11th, 1922 in Indianapolis. He served in World War II, came back to the States. He went to Cornell. He went to the University of Tennessee, University of Chicago. He was known to be a very funny writer, an absurd writer. One of his best-known works is Slaughterhouse-Five, which came out in 1967. It's one of the first anti-war novels that included like spaceships and sex and all kinds of stuff. Mm-hmm. And also the futility of war. And he did it with this sense of humor. And it's sort of the thing like at the right place at the right time. 1967 is the time to do something absurdist like that. He's written so many novels, Cat's Cradle. The Sirens of Titan, Welcome to the Monkey House. he's mostly known for Slaughterhouse-Five, and he's written many other things. But he was very active in the anti-war movement. He was very supportive of soldiers and soldiers coming home and talking about PTSD. He was also very supportive of other writers and helping people get into the business, helping people get their work presented.
That's awesome.
There's a great my co-host for Book versus Movies, a big fan of his in Indianapolis itself. They have the Kurt Vonnegut Museum where they're fighting against. We also have another problem in this country, which is banning books, banning.
Apparently, people in this country haven't seen Footloose from 1984.
I mean, Captain Underpants has been banned. Things like that. We talked about
ridiculous.
Slaughterhouse-Five, which is a beautiful book. I don't know if you've ever read it. It's weird and it's great and it's smart and it's got a sense of humor and jumps back and forth in time. Back in time.
No, we can only read the Bible.
I think one of his best things that he's ever done was he appeared in 1985's Back to School.
Yeah, I knew you were going to bring this up.
Because Rodney Dangerfield's character, Thornton Mellon, hires him to write a paper about Kurt Vonnegut, and then he calls him up and says, "Screw you, Vonnegut, I got a D." And he actually appeared in the movie because he had a great sense of humor. He loved to laugh. He just, and a few years before he died, he spent the last part of his life in New York City, lived to 84, long life. Yeah. And there was a school where the teacher asked the kids to reach out to famous writers. And so they started at the beginning of the year, and the only person to write them back was Kurt Vonnegut.
Oh, my gosh.
And he wrote this just really wonderful letter encouraging them to read, encouraging them to be creative. And he included a drawing with it. And it's just, it takes a special person, I think, to do that. And he just seems like he really was a special, no one being perfect, by the way, but
correct.
Someone who's actually, I mean, he was at the Battle of the Bulge. He went through some shit when he was at war. Yeah. And he very much was interested in the peace movement and in all kinds of civil rights movements. And so that's our non-creep this week, Kurt Vonnegut.
That's a great one. Excellent choice.
Thank you. Also, an excellent choice if you're looking for something upbeat to listen to. We co-host a show called Dorking Out, where we dork out about movies. Sonia, what are we covering next?
It's Margot's birthday is coming up, so she gets to pick, and she picked Grumpy Old Men. So I am a big fan of Jack Lemmon and Walter Matthau, and I don't think I've seen this one since the theater, so I'm really looking forward to it.
I have the clips up, the trailer, and then at the end they do a blooper reel, which is like Burgess Meredith saying one filthy joke after another is like the funniest fucking thing ever. Super excited about that.
This movie played at the movie theater I worked at, so I watched the end credits like a gazillion times, and it kind of always made me laugh.
He's taking the skin boat to Tuna Town.
It's so gross.
But I love it.
So funny.
Anyway, please, once again, send us your suggestions for creeps and for non-creeps. I'm working on our creep for next week. Big time. It's a recent one, by the way. I know I do a lot of historical ones. It's a big-time movie star. Gird your loins for that one, y'all.
Yeah.
It's not Stanley Tucci, by the way, because whenever I say that,
no.
It's like people always assume it's that person, and I'm
no.
I'm just saying an expression, a common expression. Okay, so please send us your suggestions. We love it when you use the Antipots gift. We got one from Ghostbusters, or be clever, do it on your own.
Yeah.
All those places. Once again, please be sure to subscribe and give us a good review should you feel like it. That would be amazing. whatacreeppodcast@gmail.com is our email. And Sonia, where can they find you?
You can find me at thesoniashow.com and The Sonia Show on Twitter and Instagram and the TikTok. Where can people find you, Margot?
You can find me on Twitter at Brooklyn Margot. I'm on Instagram at Brooklyn Fit Chick. I never said it that way before. My site is brooklynfitchick.com. I'm on TikTok at Margot Donahue. Really grateful for all of you that listen to the show. We really love doing it.
Thank you.
We'll see you. you could see us. I forgot to mention.
That's right. You can see us.
We're on, it's on F This Movie.
Reserved seating.
It's on YouTube. If you find the letter F and then This Movie on Twitter or fthismovie.net, you'll find the post. You can see Sonia and I. We're talking about, we made our picks for drive-in selections from the 80s and 90s. It was a hoot.
It was so fun. We had such a good time. We always have a good time hanging out with Adam, and it was nice to chat with Rob.
Rob DiCristino, who's a big TV star in Philadelphia these days.
Yeah, he's all fancy.
All fancy and shit. Okay, y'all, for real. We're going to head out. Happy St. Patrick's Day. Erin go bra. As we always say, stay safe, be kind. Don't be a creep.
Be a creep.
Thank you for listening to us talk about creeps. You can follow us at What a Creep Podcast on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
But don't follow us too closely.
You can email us your creepy stories at whatacreeppodcast@gmail.com.
But please keep your dick pics to yourself.